Hey y'all, welcome back to the Indiana Wastewater Audio Flashcards podcast, where I talk about wastewater exam prep type material, things that will help someone grow to pass an exam or to learn about the processes and wastewater treatment and different kinds of things. It's good to be back on here. It's been a couple months since I've recorded a show. A lot of things have happened in the past couple months since I've recorded a show, and the last one I recorded was on disinfection and wastewater treatment, and now we're going to do, or I'm going to do, excuse me, an episode on facultative ponds and lagoons, and it's a very good topic to study and to reinforcing your brain when it comes to studying and learning for an exam and everything. But just wanted to give you an update. Since the last show that I recorded, I have changed career fields. Instead of being in the water and the wastewater industry, now I'm in the steam and boiler industry, but I still like to add value to water and wastewater operators, and as well as steam and boiler industry people as well. But I started a new job back in June, uh, that I was at a water treatment plant and a water treatment system there almost 5 years, and then I left there to assume a role as a utility shift operator for a steam plant down in the downtown area where I live. So it's a um, very exciting opportunity for me to learn and to grow and to look at this new place and bring my skills and or what I have as skills, and then also learn new skills and create better influence with people and grow and assume that role. So that's something that I'm excited about, and that's why I haven't uploaded any shows here recently, is because I just needed to get my head in the right space and just trying to get my feet wet and settled in to this new job and everything. But I wanted to continue on and record this show and get it out there to you and everything. So uh, just am thankful for the opportunity to add value to people in this industry and to add value to people that want to be in this industry and everything. And you know, I got the inspiration to do this after I studied myself and studied for my wastewater exam that I passed back in March, and it was a class one here in Indiana. So um, I was very proud of that and thankful to God that I was able to pass the exam, and now I can add value to others. So, but we're going to jump into this episode on facultative ponds, or in other parts of the country, they call them lagoons. So here we go. Number one, what is a facultative pond? It is a wastewater treatment pond that uses both aerobic and anaerobic biological processes. Next, what is the primary purpose of a facultative pond? It's to reduce BOD, or in other words, biochemical oxygen demand, and suspended organic matter through biological treatment. What are the three major zones of a facultative pond? So you got the aerobic zone, which is the top layer. We'll get to that. Then you have the facultative, which that's either or. It can be aerobic or anaerobic, which usually, if I'm not mistaken, they call that anoxic maybe, but facultative can be both. So that's like the second zone, or in the middle, I should say. And then the bottom layer or the bottom zone will be the anaerobic zone. That's where no dissolved oxygen is present uh, in that zone. So, so those are the three zones in a facultative pond. So, where is the aerobic zone located? And the aerobic zone is located near the surface of the pond, or at the top, as I was saying earlier. So the aerobic zone is at the top. And so we're going to go to the next question, which will tell us or show us is where is the anaerobic zone located. And then I said that earlier as well, is near the pond bottom and within the sludge layer. So the aerobic zone is at the top, so that's where the sunlight and the oxygen and all that stuff um, can get to that zone. And then the anaerobic zone is no oxygen, no sunlight, and all that stuff. And then it can like decompose and do its work down there. The microorganisms, the anaerobic ones, can do its work in that zone. So, which will bring us to this question: what occurs in the facultative zone? Organisms capable of functioning under both aerobic and anaerobic conditions break down organic matter. See, that's what happens in the facultative zone, or that's in the middle, or it can go either way. They can function aerobically or anaerobically to break down the organic matter. So then we have this next question. What is the major biological source of oxygen in a facultative pond? And the major biological source is algae performing photosynthesis. So the algae performs the photosynthesis process, and that's the major source of oxygen. And then what other processes add oxygen to the pond? And that's atmospheric reaeration across the water surface. So that's like the wind action that you get that brushes over the pond. That is the other form of oxygen that the pond or the facultative pond or lagoon can get, is through atmospheric reaeration on the pond surface. What does photosynthesis require? It requires sunlight, carbon dioxide, nutrients, and water. What important product do algae release during photosynthesis? And algae releases oxygen during photosynthesis. So when the algae is releasing it during photosynthesis, it's usually, I believe, it's during the daylight hours. That's where all the oxygen is released. Is during the day, and then that would make the pH go up during the daytime. So when the pH of the pond is, at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that's at its highest. It is the pH is higher. So a thing to remember is when the sun is up, the pH is up, and when the sun is down, the pH is down. That's how we remember that in our facultative ponds. How do aerobic bacteria help treat wastewater? They use oxygen to biologically break down organic matter. What do bacteria produce that algae can use? Carbon dioxide and nutrients. What happens to photosynthesis at night? It stops because sunlight is unavailable. So it's like I was saying earlier, when the sun is up, the pH is up. When the sun is down, the pH is down. So at night, there is no photosynthesis, and it releases carbon dioxide at night. What generally happens to dissolved oxygen at night? It decreases as organisms continue consuming oxygen. So they consume it, but it decreases because there's no photosynthesis. When is lagoon DO typically lowest? And it's just before sunrise. So just before the sun is up, probably like good 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, the DO in the lagoon is typically the lowest. When is lagoon DO often the highest? That's in the late afternoon after several hours of photosynthesis. As I said earlier, probably like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the DO, the oxygen, the pH is the highest, or the oxygen is the highest then. So it's going to make the pH go up. So, why can lagoon pH increase during daylight hours? Because algae remove carbon dioxide from the water during photosynthesis. What happens to heavier solids entering a lagoon? They settle to the bottom. What forms as solids accumulate on the pond bottom is a sludge layer. What type of microorganisms primarily digest bottom sludge? And that's anaerobic microorganisms. So it's like we said earlier, or I say we, but I mean me. As I said earlier, when we were talking about the different zones in a facultative pond, the anaerobic zone is at the bottom. It's the bottom layer. So those microorganisms are anaerobic microorganisms, and they'll primarily digest the bottom sludge. What does anaerobic mean? Biological activity occurring without free dissolved oxygen. What does aerobic mean? Is biological activity occurring in the presence of dissolved oxygen. So anaerobic, it means that there's no dissolved oxygen. It's without it. But when it's aerobic, that means that it's the presence of dissolved oxygen. So that's very important to know. What does facultative mean? Capable of functioning under either aerobic or anaerobic conditions. What is BOD? And as biochemical oxygen demand. Mark it down. Listen to this, because that will definitely, they will ask you questions about that on the test. It's very important in a wastewater terminology, and learning these things in a flashcard. BOD is very important to learn. Make sure you look that up and study that, and then the different processes in wastewater treatment. What does BOD indicate? The amount of oxygen microorganisms required to biologically break down biodegradable or organic matter. So remember that definition. What can happen if excessive BOD enters a facultative pond? Oxygen demand can exceed oxygen production, causing anaerobic conditions. So when the pond has too much BOD, or too much, incoming, or it has too much biochemical oxygen demand from the waste, too much waste that's in it, it's going to suck all the oxygen out of the pond, and it's going to make it a dead pond, which is going to be anaerobic, which means that it's septic, which means that it's not going to be any life in it to where it can treat it. You know what I'm saying? So it's just going to be anaerobic, and you don't want that, because you want that to be either or, and it will have an aerobic layer at the top. So you don't want to drive all that oxygen out of there, because then there's no way to treat things uh, biologically as wastewater treatment does. So um, next, what is organic overloading? Introducing more organic material than the pond can effectively treat. So yeah, that's what you don't want to do. So when you organically overload it, then that's when it's going to create an excessive BOD, which is going to make it an aerobic condition. So that's something that you have to take into consideration, is that don't organically overload the lagoon or the pond. What is hydraulic overloading? And that is sending excessive wastewater flow through the pond. You don't want to hydraulically overload it. It has to come in a very smooth way, or in a very leveled type of way. You don't want to hydraulically overload the pond. And that leads us to the next question, is what can hydraulic overloading do to detention time? And what it will do to the detention time is decrease it. So um, you don't want to decrease the detention time, because that means it's not getting the proper turnover in that lagoon or that pond, and that's not good. So what is detention time? And detention time is the theoretical average amount of time wastewater remains in the treatment pond. What is the basic detention time formula? So the basic detention time formula is detention time equals volume divided by flow using compatible units. Why is adequate detention time important? Because it gives biological processes sufficient time to treat the wastewater. So yes, that's why detention time is so important. You got to give the biological process the sufficient time to treat the wastewater. Otherwise, it's just raw wastewater going in and out, not being treated. And that's defeating the purpose of the pond. The pond is there to treat the wastewater. So, and it has to have adequate detention time. What is short circuiting? Which is This is going into what we just been talking about. What is short circuiting? Short circuiting is when wastewater traveling too directly from the inlet to the outlet without using the pond's full treatment volume. So that means it's just going in really quick and coming out, but it's not being treated. You don't want to short circuit your pond. Um, that's unhelpful, and that's when violations and those type of things come into effect, because you don't want the outgoing stuff in these ponds. You don't want it to be create a violation and all those types of things. They're very strict on that. So why is short circuiting undesirable? It reduces effective detention time and treatment efficiency. That's why you don't want it to happen. What structures can help prevent short circuiting? So This will help it will be properly designed inlet and outlet structures and baffles in the pond is what will help the short circuiting to help things go in a uniform way. What may a black colored lagoon indicate? It will be strong anaerobic conditions or organic overloading. So again, when you get into the color where it's black and it looks very, very nasty looking, that means it is anaerobic conditions. That means it is becoming septic and is not having any treatment being done in it. So that's not good for a facultative pond or a lagoon. What gas is commonly associated with a rotten egg odor? And that's hydrogen sulfide or H2S. And when you get into anaerobic conditions where a lagoon is black colored or looks very undesirable to look at, it will produce this H2S or hydrogen sulfide, and those smells will be very, very repugnant to people because they can smell it around them, around the treatment facility and around, the community and all that stuff. That's where, um, the states come in and the violations and all that stuff is because, that stuff has to be taken care of. So, yeah, H2S or hydrogen sulfide is a very, very serious gas and smell, and you don't want to mess around with that. What can strong, persistent lagoon odors indicate? Excessive anaerobic activity, overloading, poor circulation, or other treatment problems. That's just what we were talking about. When you start smelling it around a lagoon, you know that it's anaerobic, you know that it could be overloaded and poor circulation and other treatment processes or problems aren't being solved or addressed. How does cold weather affect biological treatment? It generally slows microbial activity. So in the wintertime, you you know, in the wintertime it's just like us. In the summer, we're vibrant, we're moving, we're got the blood flowing, everything is moving, everything is going at a rate of speed that is very good. But in the winter, we kind of slow down, things get cold, things don't move as quick. So in a biological treatment in wastewater, cold weather is not. You gotta make it your friend. You gotta do stuff to counteract it because you want those microorganisms to grow and to continue to treat because they're not going to move as fast versus when it's hot weather and it's in the summer. So that goes into our next question is how can warm temperatures affect biological activity? They generally increase biological activity within an appropriate operating range. So, and in a pond, that's very important to know is how to deal with the summer months and then how to deal with the winter months. Why should an operator inspect lagoon dikes? And that's to identify erosion, seepage, vegetation problems, and animal burrows before they threaten structural integrity. So, yeah, you definitely got to check that stuff out to keep the lagoon intact and to keep the lagoon in proper working order. Why should excessive weeds and woody vegetation be controlled? They can obstruct inspections and contribute to dike or shoreline problems. And then the next thing is why are burrowing animals a concern around lagoon dikes? Their tunnels can weaken dikes and create pathways for leakage. So yeah, you get animals that get down in there and make holes and different types of things that can weaken the structure of the dike, and then leakage comes, and then that's a problem. What should operators routinely monitor in facultative lagoons? And they should monitor the dissolved oxygen or DO, the pH, the temperature, the water level, the odors, color, algae, sludge accumulation, and overall physical condition. Those things is what an operator should routinely monitor in a facultative lagoon. Why should operators inspect lagoon inlet and outlet structures? To ensure proper flow, distribution, and prevent blockages or short circuiting. What is a major advantage of facultative ponds? They are relatively simple to operate and can have low energy requirements. So it's not very you know it's not very cost effective. Maybe in a way it could be. I don't know, but I know they're very simple to operate. They're not like an actual treatment plant where you have a lot of pumps and a lot of things going on in it, a lot of moving parts, but you just need the land and to really get it started to do a pond or a lagoon, and it's very low energy, so it's not a lot of pumps and things out there to have to take care of and all of that stuff. So it's very simple to operate. What is a major disadvantage of facultative ponds? And just like what I was saying, it might, I was talking about cost effectiveness, but they require substantial land area. So you have to find somewhere where um, the land area can be purchased and all of that, and going through all of that type of stuff to make a facultative pond. Um, why can lagoon effluent contain high suspended solids during heavy algae growth? And algal cells can leave the lagoon with the effluent and contribute to the TSS, or the total suspended solids. What relationship is essential to facultative lagoon treatment? And that's algae produce oxygen for bacteria, while bacteria break down waste and provide carbon dioxide and nutrients that support algae. And the last one before the rapid fire check. What is the easiest way to remember how a facultative lagoon works? It works like this: sunlight, then it produces algae, then the algae produces oxygen, then bacteria, then the waste breaks down with anaerobic digestion occurring in the bottom sludge layer. That's how a facultative lagoon works. And so we just got to remember that when we think of the surface, we think of it as anaerobic because that's where all the anaerobic zone is at. It's on the surface of the pond. And we have to remember that facultative is the middle layer. So we remember in the middle layer of the pond, that's where it's facultative. Either it can be aerobic or anaerobic. So it can go both ways, and that's what facultative means. And then at the bottom, it is an aerobic area where it's a sludge layer, and the anaerobic microorganisms do their work down at the bottom layer of the pond. You remember, as I said earlier, that in the daytime the DO rises, so that means the pH will rise. And in the nighttime, the DO falls, which means the pH will fall. So when the sun is up, the pH is up. When the sun is down, the pH is down, and or the DO and the pH is down. So we have to remember that when it's high BOD, it's a higher oxygen demand. So that means it's going to take more oxygen to um, it's going to take more oxygen. The microorganisms are going to want more oxygen to break down, or they're going to consume more oxygen to break down the matter, and that's not good when you got a high BOD. And then you got a high flow, which means you got shorter detention time, which means that it's going to be a lot of short circuiting through the pond, and that's something that you don't want. You want things to run in a flow, uniform flowing way, and not short circuit your pond. And then lastly, algae and bacteria, they have a key biological partnership, is that without those, you really can't do any treatment in a facultative lagoon or a pond. So that was a short session on facultative ponds and lagoons. Uh, Something to give you, and hopefully it will help you pass an exam, or you can continue to listen to this over and over again. That's why I love doing these types of shows, because it can help you to learn whatever you need to learn when it comes to studying for an exam. So, like I said, just something I want to give you. Definitely going to be putting out some more as I go along. But I'm glad to get this one out to you, because it's been a couple months now, and I know people probably like, maybe he faded off or something, or you know, he he's hid his face from the world or something like that. But no, I'm here, and I just wanted to give this to you, and hopefully that will help you grow and level up. So this is Jamel with the Indiana Wastewater Audio Flashcards podcast, and I hope this added value to you. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. It's on YouTube, it's on Apple Podcasts, and it's also on Spotify. And thank you for all that you do. And remember to keep moving on, keep doing things with passion, purpose, and precision. That's what my brand. That's what I am doing. Is H2O Hustle. That's what it's all about. Is doing things with passion, purpose, and precision. And God bless all of you. And I will see you on the next show.